Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. I'm going to give you both weather updates and where we are as a city. I was just able to meet with a number of cabinet officials to get the most current information on where we are and what's likely to be headed our way. I want to do first a public announcement. In the snow, people may have forgotten, but you got to vote by Tuesday. So if you live in Seattle, please remember to mail your ballot in and vote. This is not Groundhog's Day. We feel like we've been here before, but we have two systems moving this direction, both of them potentially dangerous. They will create dangerous driving conditions even under the best circumstances, and they will also present life-threatening situations for our unsheltered neighbors. That's why this afternoon here at the Emergencies Operations Center, I met with the key cabinet and also got the weather reports forecasting as best we could on what was coming our way. Our goal remains the same. We want to keep everybody safe. And I want to thank people. We have had a very low incident of driving accidents, people hurting themselves in neighborhoods and the like, because people took this very seriously. And people knew that the storm was a real storm. They stayed inside, they stayed out of their cars. But we're expecting there to be 2 more storms coming through Seattle. We've already accumulated a significant amount of snow. In fact, we believe that it's a record for February, and we're only halfway through February. We're expecting that the first snow will start this afternoon into this evening. It could be snowing heavily at times. The forecast has a larger range than it did before in the total accumulation. It could be anywhere from about 1 to 4 inches in the Seattle area. Then we'll have a brief break and early Monday, but we're expecting another serious storm to come during the working hours on Monday. Starting sometimes Monday morning, we're not sure. It could be very, very difficult and dangerous during that period of time. The best case scenario is we get a lot more snow. The worst case scenario is that we get a lot of freezing rain and snow, which would create greater hazards, as you hear from the people who are here today. So worst case, we're predicting 8 to 12 inches of snow in the second snowstorm, and that's on top of the 11 inches we have already. Tomorrow at 5 a.m., we will be reactivating our Emergency Operations Center here and have representations from all the city departments. Working across the city, we continue to work with our regional partners, including Metro, Sound Transit, King County, and the outlying cities. Our SDOT teams have been particularly amazing. They have been doing back-to-back 12-hour shifts to get our roads into condition. We have trucks roving our major arterials with plows. We have salt spreaders. We have de-icer trucks and graders. Our contractors that we've also have on standby have been grading our streets, and we have 31 hand crews. Citywide, we've also pre-positioned trucks and supplies, and we're working with King County to make sure that we have enough emergency shelter space. You'll be hearing more of that from Jason. But our navigation team, I just want to give a big call out to them. They have been working around the clock for the past several nights, talking to everyone they find who's unsheltered, trying to get them inside. And we've been able to bring a number of people from outside into a number of shelters, both King County shelters and city shelters. And Jason will give you more information about that. Power outages are another thing that could be in our future. So far, we've been fortunate. We've escaped most of the big power outages, and the ones we've had, City Light has been able to restore very quickly. But if we get the rain and ice that could be coming our way, that is one of the most hazardous conditions for both our roadways and for loss of powers, because that's when lines start to fail and trees start to fail. We will be making sure that we have additional warming centers for people if their power does go out during this. I really want to thank the people of Seattle. I was out a little bit today in different parts of the city, and people's spirits are pretty high. Kids are a little bored, but people have done what we've asked. But we know the frustrations can continue to mount, and people will start to think, now it's time to get back in my car. It's Monday. Let's go back to work. Please, if you do not have to drive, still do not drive. The roads will continue to be a challenge, and we want to make sure that those roads remain clear so that our fire and our police and emergency response can continue to route those roads. Also, if you do have to go outside, I know it sounds obvious, but dress warmly. We've had a number of people who have not dressed warmly enough for conditions. We expect less wind than we've had, but it still will be very cold. If you are concerned about anyone who is unsheltered outside, please call 211, the crisis line. They're ready to help you. They know what shelters are open and available. If it appears to be an emergency and someone needs help right away, call 911. The Seattle Police Department is ready to respond. We have a number of vans that will pick people up, take them to shelters. We have been moving people between shelters because some shelters were over capacity. People also don't realize the City of Seattle has responsibility for over 12,000 seniors through our Human Services Department. And we have created a number of things to make sure that those seniors are okay in this kind of weather. There's phone trees. We're making sure people have food. We're making sure that if they're a place that loses power, that we can get to them. Again, this could be another series of serious storms. The first one is sure. We don't think as much snow will fall tonight. The second storm, we think will have much more precipitation, but they're just not sure yet whether it will fall as snow, whether it will fall as freezing rain, whether Seattle will get the brunt of it, or whether it will be a little north or a little south. It's a little bit more typical of we'll know when we get there. Any scenario is not good for our city. It's going to be hard to get around and potentially very, very dangerous. I want to close with a couple of things. One, I want to thank all the people who are in the room here today. But more importantly, I really want to thank their teams. We have had employees from the Parks Department working at the Garfield Community Center that stood up a shelter. We've had people that are working the road crews from SDOT, SPU. People throughout city government have been really standing up to do what they need to do for the people of Seattle. And often it's the people who are our lowest paid employees, who live the furthest, come the furthest, and are doing these jobs. When I saw the crew today at Holler Lake, one of the employees came to me and said, he talked to me about his family who are snowed in. He lives very far north of Everett, and they've been snowed in. So I want to thank the families of the city employees too, because we know that without your support, that the employees couldn't do what they need to do for the city of Seattle. I will close it and turn it over now to Sam Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Mayor. Sam Zimbabwe with Seattle Department of Transportation. Just to reiterate a couple of things that we are doing to keep the roads clear. We are working 12-hour shifts around the clock, and we have planned to do that throughout this week to focus on our snow routes, on our green and gold snow routes that are our arterial streets that are really aimed at moving the most people and goods as possible. So we're focused on bus routes, on freight routes, trying to keep the city moving as much as possible. You'll notice that there are still icy patches. The freeze overnight last night did harden some of those locations. Most of those streets that we've been able to plow are now bare and wet. Again, as the mayor said, we've got more precipitation coming. As much as possible, just to reinforce, please clear your sidewalks. We're able to get to the sidewalks that don't have adjacent homes or businesses next to them, across bridges, things like that, and addressing some of the curb ramps at intersections, but we need everybody's help to clear their sidewalks. Doing it before it gets compacted and icy is much better than doing it after. If you do need to travel, please, in a car, please make sure your car is ready for the winter weather. Make sure it's clear of all snow and ice completely before you get started, and make sure you're looking out for pedestrians, the plows, the public employees that are out there working this event. You can stay informed if you look SDOT winter weather map. You can see where we've made progress on where our plows are. You can see traffic cameras to see conditions, and you'll see where we have closed streets. Again, if there are closed streets, please do not try to travel down them. They're closed for everybody's safety, and that's both first responders and the general public. And then when you shovel, I know folks aren't that used to shoveling here. It's very difficult work, so take breaks, stay hydrated. It can really be exhausting if you're not used to it. So please stay safe. We'll work to keep you safe as well. Just make sure you're taking the right precautions.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Johnson. I'm with the Human Services Department. I wanted to provide a few more details about our homeless response as well as the department's response to ensure there's wellness checks done for the thousands of people, seniors and people living with disabilities across the county. But I wanted to start with the navigation team. As the mayor mentioned, we have two crews of our navigation team, which is a team made up of police officers as well as social workers who have been combing the streets of Seattle since Friday. They worked Friday until 5 a.m. Saturday. They put crews back on the streets all day Saturday and Saturday night. And there are two crews out now working to ensure that anyone living unsheltered knows where they can go to be indoors. So I want to just say thank you, join the mayor in thanking those teams. They've been working around the clock and have been successful in getting a number of people to our emergency severe weather shelters. Speaking of those shelters, there is shelter capacity. There is space available. So I encourage anyone who is living outdoors or needing indoor shelter to please go inside. So the severe weather shelter at Seattle Center at the Exhibition Hall, that shelter actually is running beyond capacity. There were 185 people who stayed there last night. And so we are using the navigation team to help transport folks from that shelter to shelters where we have more capacity. The Armory at Seattle Center is open during the day. That space can be used as a warming shelter, and we encourage people to, again, stay indoors, and they can use the Armory anytime during the day between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Parks has opened the Garfield Community Center as a 24-hour shelter. There were 56 individuals who stayed there last night. They have capacity for about 130 to 140, so there is capacity at that facility. That is, as I said, a 24-hour facility, and right now is scheduled to be open through Tuesday. City Hall, we had 120 people stay the night at City Hall. That is a shelter that has capacity for 200. So there is additional capacity for people to stay at the overnight City Hall shelter. King County Admin Building is also open 24 hours for shelter overnight and during the day. 42 people stayed there last night. That facility has capacity for 100. So there's capacity at King County Admin Building. 4th and Jefferson, that is a county-run shelter on the corner of 4th and Jefferson downtown, right across from City Hall Park, and they had 47 people stay there last night. That facility also has capacity for 100, so there are spaces available at 4th and Jefferson. That shelter is 24 hours. People can go there during the day or during the night. Again, Mayor mentioned the crisis clinic. The crisis clinic can be reached by dialing 211 or by calling 206-461-3222. That is a 24-hour crisis line. If people need specifics about shelter that's open or other human services that they need, they should be able to get some help by calling the crisis clinic. But again, we want to state that if you see someone who is in serious crisis, please don't hesitate to call 911 to get them help. We have patrols who can help transport individuals to the shelter and ensure that those individuals get inside and get the services that they need. The mayor also mentioned the thousands of individuals that live across the county that the Human Services Department is responsible for their in-home care. So there are a number of those folks who are homebound or who have extreme difficulty with mobility. We are doing round-the-clock phone trees that will continue tomorrow to make sure that people are safe, that they have what they need, that power is on, and that they can get the care that they require. So that effort will be ongoing as this weather continues. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Smith with Seattle City Light, and I thankfully have relatively little to report to you right now. We have a total of 7 customers out right now, which is great for a Sunday afternoon. Our emergency operations center has been active all weekend, and we've been holding 2 calls per day, staying on top of things as best we can. Our customer contact center actually closed this morning at 10 because the call level was very, very low, but folks are on standby, ready to reopen as necessary. And I would say we do have key accounts and life support help available for customers who fall into one of those categories, and that's staffed 24/7. So all in all, we've been very fortunate as an electric utility and have appreciated very much the patience that our customers have shown us and the courtesy they've shown our staff. The events on Friday, et cetera, what we mostly saw was distribution lines going down, which meant we had a couple of customers here and there. Yesterday, we did have a couple of tree events that caused feeders with larger numbers of customers. But because we've had kind of a slow and steady bit of activity since Friday, we've been able to stay on top of it. And right now, today, we're arresting our people in anticipation of the next 2 events that are coming. We are concerned about our employees' actually ability to get home safely tomorrow and back safely the next day. So we've asked critical employees to bring a bag tomorrow night so they can be prepared to spend the night with us as needed. And as Mayor Durkin mentioned, our biggest concern is if one or both of the coming events results in freezing rain or ice. So that becomes a real big problem for power infrastructure, for lines and for trees. And I would also note that it's sometimes somewhat cumulative. So we're seeing tree branches and power lines that have dealt with the weight right now, and they've managed well. And you can have a relatively small thing like an increase in wind or a relatively small amount of snow that can change things quickly. So we're very prepared and very willing and ready to take care of things. We're monitoring the situation carefully. We would advise our customers to do the same. And again, our number one priority is the safety of our employees and the customers that we serve. So we would ask you to be diligent. If you see downed power lines, assume that they are energized and dangerous. Keep a wide berth around them. Please call safety concerns in to us as well as outages, and be very safe. And I just need to do a shout out to my people who've been working really hard for almost a week now, and with a lot more to come, and for my city department heads who are just awesome. Thanks very much, and be safe.
Good afternoon. I'm Mami Hara, General Manager of Seattle Public Utilities. Garbage, recycling, yard waste, and food waste collection is dependent on safe road and weather conditions. So Mother Nature has thrown us a curveball, and we are thankful to the residents of Seattle for their patience as we wait for the next safe window for collection for our teams. Despite the series of winter storms, crews on Friday were able to pick up approximately 60% of Thursday residential customers on a 1-day delay. And over the past few days, contractors were able to catch up on most of the delayed commercial and multifamily collections from earlier in the week. Today, crews are making pickups at urgent sites like hospitals, as well as bagged waste in alleys. And both our north and south transfer stations are open today, and staff are ready to receive garbage, recycling, yard, and food waste drop-offs. SPU and its contractors are closely watching the forecast and assessing pickup for our Monday customers, our customers who were first impacted last week. If we cannot pick up our Monday's customers' garbage, recycling, and yard waste tomorrow, we will attempt to operate on a 1-day delay and pick up on Tuesday. Customers can set out additional bags free of charge. If snowy, icy conditions prevent crews from being able to pick up safely on Tuesday for our Monday customers, we will prioritize Monday customers and get to them as soon as the weather cooperates. And we will provide updates on our website, on Twitter, at Seattle SPU, and on Alert Seattle. So please sign up for notifications. Seattle Public Utilities crews stand by ready to respond to any issues related to water as well as drainage and wastewater. Our water quality remains high and volumes remain steady, but we continue to closely monitor as our labs and facilities remain open and operating. During this challenging weather, customers can help by protecting their water pipes from freezing. Protect your pipes by opening cabinet doors for cabinets that have pipes inside of them, use outdoor faucet covers, and there are a number of other tips that can be found on our website at seattle.gov/UTIL. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mayor, can you talk a little bit about, you talked about the possibility of freezing rain. Does that make it even tougher than the possibility of facing snow coming down?
It can. Yeah, I think either one is a really difficult situation, and I'm going to let Sam maybe answer that at length, but they have different things that they present. So the snow, we know what we have. We have to continue doing what we're doing. We have to plow the roads. We've got to de-ice. People have to stay out of their cars. If we get the freezing rain, it presents a whole nother range of problems, particularly if the temperature stays below freezing. Then we can have roads that are just sheets of ice, sidewalks that are sheets of ice. The branches become heavy as ice. They start to fall and take the power lines out, which leads to whole other issues. So neither of the weather forecast is a good weather forecast for us, but we're doing everything we can to prepare for either scenario. Sam, did I answer that fairly?
That was perfect. Just to sort of add on to that, we're keeping a close tab on it because it affects how we treat the roads, whether we're using liquid or solid treatment. As the mayor said, ice presents more tree and electricity, I think, challenges, and snow. If we get the accumulations that we are hearing are sort of worst case scenarios on top of what's already out there, we're going to start to see some pretty significant accumulations along streets just from the plowing. And so the clearing is one aspect, and then also the recovery after that. We're looking at not just the weather forecast for the next couple of days, but where we're going the rest of this week to figure out what strategies we need to put in place to clear the roads as quickly as possible.
Go ahead.
Can you talk about sort of getting people to think about the pattern of the first and the second, because they may see the snow tonight in the morning, see the roads, hey, I can handle this, I can head to work, and then you have that really tough situation at commute time or when people see the snow coming down. I think we saw a lot of people trying to leave work on Friday as the snow started coming down, and it can get really dicey.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I think that a lot of the schools are grappling with that right now is, you know, if the roads look clear, people get in their cars, they go to work, and then the next event comes through. So we're expecting, again, an event tonight that will not be the larger of the two events. But we do expect some snow accumulation, which in normal Seattle patterns would be enough for people to say, hey, it snowed. But I think that people should take a great amount of caution. We're certain there's more precipitation coming tomorrow. And it's going to start sometime during the workday and in advance of that commute. It will be dangerous regardless of what it is. If it is just plain old northwest rain, it's going to hit the snow that's already there. If it's ice, we've talked about that, it's not good. And if it's snow, it's going to be difficult. So any of the patterns that are coming will be difficult patterns, so prepare accordingly. If you can stay out of your car, do. Know that Metro is going to be on its reduced schedule. It will continue on its snow pattern. And so make sure that if you rely on a bus, that you look to see if your bus is coming at the normal place and the normal time. If you rely on Sound Transit, look at their schedule as well. I think Sound Transit will continue to operate. We've talked to them as well. Their biggest challenge will be if there ends up being either snow or problems with the switches themselves. So each of one of these events could have different permutations of how bad it is. But again, the number one thing we can do as a city is look out for each other. I've just heard more and more stories. Again, I was out today talking to people, and people are looking after each other. They're looking at their, going and checking on neighbors. They're making sure people are okay. And so I think as a city, we just got to remember, we're all in this together. And if we all use our judgment, our common sense together in the city, in this region, we'll get through this week. We'll get through February. April, May are going to be gorgeous. Kevin.
Yeah, so you mentioned icy sidewalks earlier. I've heard a lot of folks around the city, raising issues about that. Is SDOT trying to do anything more to help people with that? Everything from doing more de-icing on the sidewalks around arterial bus stops just to help people get to the buses and be able to take them versus, or maybe like helping. I've heard lots of folks say that hardware stores are out of de-icer now, so it's hard to actually get it if people can even get to the hardware stores. So have you looked at the things you can do to help distribute de-ice around the city, just to help people help you take care of those
Yeah,
sidewalks?
those are good questions. So we've tried to do exactly what you talked about, focusing on places where we can serve the most people and make sure that we maintain mobility as much as possible. So, making sure that trying to deploy folks, and we've got about 30 folks out in hand crews with shovels and hand tools, trying to clear curb ramps, bus stops, bridges that we know ice and that don't have somebody next to them that is responsible for them. We've heard some of the same issues about supplies. We don't really have a way to distribute those to folks around the city, but that's something that we'll be monitoring
Can you
around.
take a truck to a parking lot for a high school or community center?
Yeah, these are things that I think as this event goes on, those might be different types of strategies that we have to see what we do. I think the most important thing right now is getting something down if you can, and trying to get those sidewalks as clear as possible, and then staying on top of it as it starts to come down. Don't let it pack into ice and then try to get after it. If you've already cleared your sidewalk, clear it as soon as the snow starts to come down again over the next couple of days.
So just to follow up, if people are seeing places that they're particularly concerned about, that look like, I've got a complaint from somebody earlier today about an overpass where water was dripping down off the overpass as snow melted, and it formed basically a solid layer of ice on the sidewalk underneath there.
Yep.
If people see things like that, they want to report. How do they report that?
Absolutely. So 206-684 road, or 684-7623. So I'll say that one more time for clarity. 206-684 road, 7623 road, just road. But nobody has letters on their phone anymore. Call that's SDOT's service line. Call in locations that are challenging to that if we are working to deploy those crews out to places where they need to respond. And we'll try to get as many of those locations taken care of as possible.
And I would say the other really good thing is, you were going to add something, Deborah? Okay. Other good thing is, because we had this great collaboration and partnership with the other transit and transit agencies. So he's in constant contact with transit, with WashDOT and the like. And so there's sometimes it ends up where it drips down and it's actually WashDOT's responsibility, but they're scrambling crews too. So if you see something, report it in all those ways you can. We're going to try to take care of it. And if it isn't a City of Seattle property, we've got great working relationships with all our partnerships now. So we in fact, even with the outlying cities, a lot of the number cities ran out of salt. And we were able, through some of our distribution networks, to make sure that some of the other regional partners in King County and elsewhere had salt for their roads. So there's good communication now. You have a question?
Yeah, question for you and probably also for Jason. Last year's one night count showed about 4,500 people unsheltered on Seattle streets. Can you tell us how many do you think are sheltered during this event? And also, when weather like this is happening and people are still refusing shelter, what does that say to you about the current system?
I'll take those in reverse order. We know hundreds of more people are inside now as a result of our efforts with King County, both having additional shelter space and affirmatively going and bringing people inside. We've had at least one instance where a person we felt was emergency conditions required them to come inside, and so we made sure that happened, even though that they were preliminarily resistant. As to whether people will continue to refuse to come inside, I think it's a longer dialogue for a different day, but we're doing everything we can, literally going neighborhood by neighborhood, reaching out to people to talk to them about the dangers of staying outside, bringing them inside, making sure the shelters that are over capacity, moving the other capacity to do everything we can. And I think it's part of the larger conversation we just need to keep having as a city and a region as to how do we make sure that people do not have to live without a home.
Just a quick follow-up. Do we have just geographically shelter spaces available in each neighborhood in Seattle? How's that working? Just if someone's staying in a certain place and downtown feels too far?
Yeah. Jason, you want to take that?
Thanks.
Thanks. So we have over 2,000 shelter beds on any given night that are available we developed a full list of all shelters and their locations and made sure that that was in the hand of all of our patrol officers, so that if they come into contact with someone, they know where the closest shelter space is. The navigation team can also help with some of that coordination. And I want to just take a moment and thank our service providers. We have service providers who are working 24/7, really taking advantage of their staff's big hearts and their ability to stay focused on the job at hand, accessing volunteers where needed, and some of those overnight shelters are even making themselves available 24/7. So the city, in partnership with our service providers, are really doing everything they can to make space available. And once again, we just encourage anyone who is living unsheltered to please take advantage of the additional capacity that we have in the city. There is severe weather shelters open in Renton, in Kent, in Redmond. So there is shelter space outside the city, and I connected with them this morning. There is still capacity in those shelters as well. So again, encourage everyone to come inside.
Right.
You guys had mentioned being careful when you're shoveling. Are you seeing an increase in injuries related to people shoveling snow, people sliding around the streets of Seattle, people skiing the streets of Seattle?
Hello, Harold Scoggins, Fire Chief. We're not seeing too many of those type of injuries. There's some minor ones that happen, but nothing like you would think. So it hasn't really had a major impact on us.
Mayor, you declared a civil emergency last week.
Yes.
Have you actually needed, or have you actually invoked any of those emergency powers since then?
One of the things that does, and I'll let each of the departments discuss it, but I have to declare that emergency so the departments themselves, if they need to exercise authority to, for example, order more salt or have people stay overnight, they're able to do so. I think Deborah Smith mentioned that we may be asking people to bring go bags with them tomorrow and spend the night in Seattle. That type of thing would normally be under normal conditions, but because it's an emergency, the city will be able to cover that kind of room and board for those people. So there's a range of things. We'll give you the whole list of what has happened and what can happen under that order. If there's no other questions, I want to thank everyone for being there. And again, just really, I want to encourage people, stay safe, be smart, help your neighbors. Thank you.